We got lots to say. We got lots to say. We're glad you're here and we hope you stay, 'cause we got lots to say. Yeah, we got lots to say. Now here's Bobby and Matt.
What's up, everybody? I think we should start by just talking about all of the moves or lack of moves, but a lot of money being spent. Hey, you ever thought about, Matt, getting into like general managing personnel? Has that ever been something you wanted to do?
Interesting to do that. I think that it's the landscape's changed so dramatically since when I came in. I mean, you think about even 2 years ago, salary cap's at 234. It's at like 275 now. So you can sit there and play with money that's really the owner's money, but at the same time go out, get the guys that you want, but it's going to the highest bidder. It would be fun. I don't think I would want to get into the player personnel side just because those guys grind and they're always traveling, doing all that stuff, but actually being in the front office and working different types of deals, that would be fun.
You think you could
I just
scout?
don't know if my skill set would provide for that.
You think you'd be a good scout?
Probably, but I'm one of those guys that's very skeptical. So I'd sit there and I'd probably over-evaluate somebody and find more weaknesses than strengths, and then they'd be like, "Dude, this guy's awesome." I was like, "Sorry about that." I thought maybe you'd be a little bit upset that he stumbled out of his break or something. I don't know. I'd just be a little probably too critical.
I want to go over and use your critical skills here, and let's talk about some of the moves, and even if the player's not moving, some of the moves the teams have made to spend money on some of these players. So I will present what the situation is, and you tell me if you think it is a game changer or if it's just stay in the course. The Bills extend Josh Allen 6 years, $330 million with $250 million guaranteed.
Wow. It's good time to play quarterback in the NFL. I think this was just staying the course. Obviously, goes out, wins the MVP. We talked about it the entire year about the talent that surrounded him probably wasn't comparable to other teams, but to go out and have the year that he did proves that he's that guy, and now he's the highest paid quarterback in the league, and deservedly so.
Yeah, and I think we've learned, too, that if you sign your big players earlier, this is an extension more than it is his contract was up, that even if it is a monster deal, when it comes back around, when his deal would have been up, it would have cost them a lot more than if they were to do it now. So as much as it's the biggest guaranteed contract of all time with $250, although the whole thing is not guaranteed, but the $250 is more than when the Browns made their knucklehead full guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. But what's going to happen is in 6 years, you're going to go, oh, yeah, that was kind of a deal in comparison to what teams are paying now. So, yeah, they had to do it. You didn't want to lose your guy. If you get a quarterback now, the last thing you want to do is let him go, especially if he's in the top third of quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm with you, but it was a move that needed to be made. Let's go to the Rams signing Davante Adams. The deal is 2 years, $46 million, $26 million guaranteed.
I like it. The Rams also, you don't know what's going to go on with Cooper Kupp, but at the same time, to bring in a guy like Davante Adams, he can still play. There's no doubt about that. Put him in Sean McVay with a veteran quarterback with Matthew Stafford, which they redid his deal as well. Now you've got a true guy on the outside and an alpha male that is going to go out and produce. And I think that there's question marks about Davante personality-wise from the Raiders. You saw him on, it wasn't the Hard Knocks, it was the
wide receiver. Yeah.
Wide receiver, and you had some questions there going, man, I mean, from a personality standpoint, he ruffles the feathers a little bit, but at the same time, he's still a hell of a player and will add a tremendous amount of value for that team and that offensive unit.
I mean, I think Kupp is as good as gone. They even did we loved LA, we hate to go, but it looks like we're going to have to go. But with Davante Adams and Puka and Stafford, is this the time of just putting it all on your offense, like all your money, just going full offense and just hoping your defense can keep you in games?
Well, that's the thing about the Rams, too. When you look at what they've done, they've drafted really well, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a ton of value on that side. So they're young, they're aggressive. You saw them in the playoffs. They just got better and better as the year went on. Now, they sustained a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball. But if you surround Matthew Stafford, as talented as he is, with a true grouping of wide receivers on the outside, I mean, this team will compete for championships because that's the type of caliber I believe Matt Stafford is. So protect him up front and also put talent around him on the outside. I think that they have a great recipe for success.
The Steelers traded for DK Metcalf, and so the Seahawks got a 2025 second-round pick and a late-round pick swap for this upcoming draft. The Steelers get DK Metcalf, and so with that, though, so they have DK, and now they have George Pickens.
George Pickens.
Yeah, what do you think about that trade for the second-round pick?
I think it's awesome. DK Metcalf is an absolute beast, and he produces. He's consistent. He's usually healthy. So he's a true number one wide receiver. Then you have George Pickens on the other side. I mean, you've got two potentially number one guys on the outside there. They don't know who is going to be playing quarterback, but it puts you in a really good position at a playmaking standpoint for the Steelers. And the real question is, what is the Seattle Seahawks doing with the offensive side of the ball? They get rid of DK, they get rid of Geno Smith, they let go of Tyler Lockett. I'm still sitting there just kind of going, they're trading everybody, or they're getting rid of everybody on the offense that's ever produced for them. So I'm still confused there. But for the Steelers, I think this is a great trade.
My assumption would be they plan to make a run at Sam Darnold, and by the time that this actually posts, Sam Darnold could land somewhere, because we're seeing now every 15 minutes somebody new has landed somewhere else. But
Right.
my prediction would be that they're really going to go hard on trying to get Sam Darnold. And if that doesn't work, there are a couple quarterbacks like the Russ Wilsons, which would be totally weird if he ended back there. But there are guys, the Garoppolos, those guys that maybe aren't your quarterbacks that will be the guy for the next few years, but could be your gap guy, your bridge guy. But you're right. They shipped off all their wide receivers. I look at Pittsburgh, though, and it's like, who's going to throw the ball to those guys? You know, this morning it was Rodgers to Pittsburgh. After it was Rodgers to the Giants. And both of our predictions, mine was the Giants, yours was Pittsburgh. So I mean, if they get Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, that offense is going to be good.
They're going to be really good. And that's might be the play, is saying, hey, look, we just went out and got DK Metcalf. Now you've got George Pickens, DK Metcalf. Is it Pat Freiermuth? Is their tight end run down the middle? So you've got these three components, and that's attractive to any quarterback, because if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're looking about, where can I go in and have success? Where do they have people around me that can help me be the player that I need to be? Same thing when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay at the end of his career. He went there because of the talent on that roster, particularly on the offensive side. So it becomes more attractive to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers when you go out and you spend the money on another number one wide receiver. I think that they could be really good, but they definitely don't know who's going to be quarterback, but they put themselves in a position at least to make a play and make it an attractive place to come.
It's weird if you go and you stack yourself with, two number ones, or for sure DK's the number one. George Pickens probably 1.5 at this point, but still, and it's Justin Fields, and it might be Justin Fields, but if you're a wide receiver and Justin Fields is the guy, you got to be like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah, it's one of those situations that I've played with a lot of those alpha wide receivers, and they want the ball, and they want the ball consistently. And if you don't do your job at a high level from the quarterback standpoint, they're going to be looking at you and griping at you, and then it's going to create some chaos, because George Pickens, he's already shown the capacity to blow things up on the sideline during a game, call people out. So with that type of volatility from a personality standpoint at the wide receiver position, you better bring somebody in there that is going to have control of that room, be able to deliver the ball.
Myles Garrett was extended by the Browns, and this was a soap opera because Myles Garrett put an ad in the paper in Cleveland, was like, Cleveland, I love you. I don't really want to leave the city, but I feel like the team isn't really doing blah, blah, blah. And then he goes and he's doing the press tour, and he kind of lost some of that love by the city. And he's like, I'm not playing. They're like, we're not trading you. And then the next thing you know, it's boom, highest paid person that's not a quarterback ever, 4 years, $160 million, with $123 guaranteed. Holy crap. Thoughts?
Dude, he's an absolute stud. I never thought Cleveland was going to ever let him walk out of the door. Why would you trade your number one player on your team, one of the most dynamic defensive ends, if not the most dynamic defensive end, just because of his size, his speed, his versatility? They move him around. And so, well played by him. I mean, let's throw a temper tantrum for a little bit, see what happens, and then gets rewarded with a $160 million deal. I mean, It's not exactly how you write it up, but at the end of the day, he got what he wanted. And now I guarantee he really loves the city of Cleveland so much more.
I feel honestly, like in my heart, I feel like he not so much wanted to leave Cleveland, but he wanted to play for a team and an organization that would give him a chance to win a championship because he is so elite. He's about 30 years old. And so he's got 6, 7 real prime years left in him. But a wise man named Ted DiBiase, WWF, once said, everybody's got a price. I don't feel like he was really holding out for more money or saying, hey, I'm not going to play. I really feel like he wanted to leave, but there is a point. There is a threshold, and I guess that threshold is $160 million, where you're like, you know what? I have changed my mind.
I've changed. Guess what? I'll be in there in the gym tomorrow. I love Cleveland. I'm going to do a lot of stuff around the city and just, yeah, my mind's totally changed now. It's amazing what money can do.
The Ravens and Ronnie Stanley, great deal. 3 years, $60 million. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, if
really
you,
good player.
Yeah, if you're Derrick Henry, if you're Lamar Jackson, that's just a sigh of relief, right?
100%, because the most important guy on your offensive line is always your left tackle. He's your bookend. He's usually matched up against the best pass rusher that every other team has. So if you have somebody there that you trust that can cover your blind side and at the same time be a dominant force, that's just a headache that you don't have to worry about. So that's why they're so valuable, that left tackle position, is because if you have a guy there, that really stabilizes your offensive line, because interior wise, you can usually go out and get guys that are good enough to hold up on the inside, but those guys that are special on the outside, like Ronnie Stanley, you want to keep them around for as long as possible.
Raiders trade for quarterback Geno Smith. The Seahawks got a 2025 third-round pick. Geno back with Pete Carroll. So that's kind of cool. I do feel like they're drafting Geno, and they're probably also, if I'm just guessing, going to draft Shedeur at 6 if he's there. So they're also going to get a young quarterback. But Geno Smith going to the Raiders. Thoughts?
I love it. I mean, I know Pete Carroll has a ton of respect. He was there when Geno resurrected his career just a few years ago when they let go of Russell Wilson. But now he's got a bona fide number 1 quarterback coming in that he's familiar with. He can also help set the tone for culture and the personality of Pete Carroll and what's to be expected. He's a true leader. He's somebody that's well respected from what he's been through in his career, but also how he's performed when he got his opportunity. So I think it's a home run for the Oakland, Las Vegas Raiders and where they're going. I know. I always want to
do it with the
Oakland
Chargers.
Raiders.
I know, and I do it with the Chargers still San Diego.
San Diego?
Yeah, same thing.
All the time.
The Bears trading for Tooney from the Chiefs, I was a bit surprised. I mean, especially with the Chiefs, I won't say offensive line woes because they had some injuries, but they got a 4th-round pick for him. What are your thoughts on that?
I was not expecting that either. I mean, Tooney was their most valuable offensive lineman last year. Not only did he play guard, he moved out and played left tackle as well when they had the injuries and all the stuff going on. So he was a guy that was a staple guy on that offensive line. But it was interesting that they traded him away for a 4th-round pick. It might have been because of salary cap issues or whatever they deemed was the reasoning behind it. But Chicago picks up a home run again for them because they want to protect Caleb Williams moving forward and to solidify that offensive line who struggled last year for Chicago. Bring in a guy like Tooney, again, veteran presence, good locker room guy, and also has played at a really high level throughout his career. That's a great pickup for Chicago.
Yeah, I guess if I'm putting my speculator eyeball on, it's obviously re-signing Trey Smith the priority with Kansas City, and then they're going to have to just draft a couple offensive linemen. But that is one thing Kansas City has been able to do really well with Andy Reid and that organization there is draft well and have guys that you don't have to pay a lot to because they're in their rookie deals, while also having your guys that are making the big money and consistently moving them when it's time for some of those guys to get paid, and then redraft well again, because that's the key to keeping the organization successful, right? Is drafting well year after year?
100%, because you only have so many draft picks, and if you hit on first round, second round's a little bit different because those guys are usually bona fide studs, right? But then you get into the 3rd and 4th round and continue to draft well and get guys that come in and develop at such a rate, the way that they have in the history of success that they've had with drafting guys like that. That's what really stabilizes your organization for the long haul. And that's what they've been able to do. Now, it's always a question mark if you don't go out and take care of that offensive line, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes back there, then there'll be a lot of questions to be answered. There's no doubt about that. But due to their recent history and throughout their regime under Andy Reid, they've done a remarkable job, and they're hoping to hit success with those draft picks again.
We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to do something called Big Take or Big Fake. And so I'm going to give you an opinion. Either it is my opinion, this is my big take, or it is not my opinion, and I'm just trying to convince you it is. So we're going to play Big Take or Big Fake. We'll do that next. Yeah, you want to save it or do you want to roll? No, you can keep rolling. Okay. Everybody keep rolling. Here we go. All right, so this is called Big Take or Big Fake. So what I'll do, Matt, is I will give you an opinion, and you tell me if I really believe it or if I really don't believe it, and I'm just trying to fake you out. Okay, you ready?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones is and will be a Pro Bowl quarterback. Do you think I believe that?
I do think you believe that because I've heard you talk about Daniel Jones, and I know you have an affinity for him. So you and I have had a little bit of discussions before about just situational fit for him with the Giants. I thought he got a raw deal, but he's a guy that's capable from a physical standpoint to go out there and get it done. And he's played well at different times in his career, but you put him in the right situation and he's somebody that has the skill set to go out and be a Pro Bowl quarterback. So I do believe that you believe that.
That is a big correct take, and here's why. Now, we're still waiting on, again, as of this recording, because everything is so fluid. If he ends up with the Colts, he'll start.
Yeah.
If he ends up with the Vikings, depending on McCarthy's injury, J.J. McCarthy's injury, he may play. And right now, those are the two teams that they're indicating he could sign with. But, I mean, when you look at, and I went deep, he played behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, not only last year, but the year before. He got sacked 30 times in 6 games before he tore his ACL. And, yeah. So not only was he getting crushed, he then had the ACL injury. In 2022, in Dable's first season, listen to the stats that Daniel Jones had. 3,205 passing yards, a 67.2% completion rate, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 708 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. He took the Giants to the playoffs and won a playoff game. That's when he was healthy. That's it. That's just when he was healthy. There's nothing else to say. I just think he is a much better quarterback than people are giving him credit for, but it's hard to give somebody credit when they haven't played well or they've been injured because we don't really see how bad an offensive line is just by watching on television.
Right, and the offensive line is everything to a quarterback because if you drop back and you trust the guys in front of you, then your process isn't sped up, your sense of urgency is you're going through your reads like you should, but all of a sudden you're getting hit and hit and hit. Well, all those things change, especially from the mental side, because you're a little bit more rushed or you take off run maybe when you have to hang in there a little bit longer. But those hits have an impact on a quarterback. And so you put him with a good offensive line, good coaching staff, I think he'll excel in a big way.
And if he does play with the Vikings, I think he's just on we'll call it a 1-year Sam Darnold plan, where even if he goes in and backs him up, the same thing Darnold did in San Francisco, which I think was kind of the plan in Minnesota as well. Maybe he started a bit before J.J. McCarthy was able to play. But, I mean, these guys get behind an offensive-minded head coach that actually allows them to develop, and then they go and play really well afterward. So I'm excited for Daniel Jones. I never met him, but I've been rooting for him, and I feel like if he is given the right weapons, and I'll say weapons even as offensive lineman, like he has proven he's been really good. All right, next up, is this a big take or a big fake? Dak Prescott will never win a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's a big take. I think that you believe that. They haven't proven since the 1990s that they can, one, go deep in the playoffs, let alone win the Super Bowl. It's challenging for every team every single year, but you're also in a division with the Eagles, right? You're also in a conference that you're not a top contender year in, year out. Now, you have your good years, and I think that they're always competitive. I just don't know if it's going to be under Dak Prescott during his tenure there. I hope it is because I think he's a heck of a player. There's no doubt about it. I just don't know if they'll be able to get over that hump.
Yeah, I think Dak's a really good quarterback as well. he is still, even after Josh Allen's new contract, making more per year than Josh Allen. Dak's still the highest paid quarterback at $60 million a year. And I don't think it's totally because of Dak. You're right. It's another big take. All these may be true, by the way. There is no rhyme or reason. But he's been the Cowboys quarterback for 8 seasons. He's not made an NFC championship game. The Cowboys dominate for the most part in the regular season. And it's been a Cowboys pattern at this point. His playoff record's 2-5. The Cowboys, as you mentioned, have had a Super Bowl drought of 30 years. And it's not so much a Dak thing, but a Jerry Jones thing. And I love Jerry Jones. But if we're just looking at the data that has been presented to us in a vacuum, and they're about to have to pay, they paid Dak, they paid CD, they got Micah Parsons to pay. And to pay him is going to be even more expensive now that you've had Max Crosby and you also had Myles Garrett just signed for that money. So his value just went up, and they've been waiting, just been like kicking the can on signing him.
I know, and that's the thing is when you wait and then you start to see these big contracts roll through, it actually hurts the organization because Micah Parsons, I guarantee his representation sitting there and going, look at these two guys. I'm younger than both of them. I've got a lot more in the tank. You're going to be up there in that area right there. So it's going to cost them more money now that they waited and dragged their feet on signing him.
The Steelers should move on from Mike Tomlin. He cannot win the big games anymore. Is that a real take or is that a big fake?
I believe it's a big fake. The reason I say that, I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's been one of the most successful coaches during his tenure of any coach in the NFL. And I don't know what the run was for the playoffs in terms of how many consecutive playoffs he's gone to, but he's already proven that he's been able to win big games. I think for him also, anytime you lose your franchise quarterback, a Roethlisberger, for instance, it takes some time to find that next guy. From Kenny Pickett, you bring in Russell Wilson, you have Justin Fields, you've got a number of different guys that come into that organization that don't fit the mold to be your franchise guy. Well, it's hard to win games in this league, let alone win games consistently when you don't have a real number one at the quarterback position. If they're able to solidify that position, I think Mike Tomlin, we've known his track record and the type of defensive unit that they consistently have. If the offense catches up with that, I believe that they put themselves in another position to win a championship.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. I like you, think Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach, and I think he's had teams that probably in any other scenario probably win 4 games, 5 games, but because he is such a great coach. But it lends itself to if you do not have a quarterback, if you do not have a B plus, A minus, A quarterback, it's going to be hard to win enough games to make a deep run. I think because he has had a lack of a number one since Big Ben, that it's been award-winning coaching that has gotten them to 500 or above every single year. So, but the problem has been that purgatory, right? I mean, if you don't lose a lot of games, you're not going to get a top pick unless you trade for it. Or therefore you can't win a lot of games because you don't have the personnel to win the game. So he's been in this weird purgatory, but it would be nice to see him get a quarterback. Like, even if it's Aaron Rodgers, and I cannot stand Aaron Rodgers. I used to love him. Like 9 months ago, I loved Aaron Rodgers. Like, I like outspoken people. I do. Even if I don't agree with them.
He is outspoken.
Yes. I feel like he started acting like he was smarter than everybody instead of just being smarter than most people. So therefore I started to not like him as much, and not even for what he was saying, just for like how he seemed. So I've been an Aaron Rodgers guy. I would like, even though I'm not anymore, I would like Aaron Rodgers to go to the Steelers. I think that would be cool, even though I picked the Giants. And to have Mike Tomlin have a shot at having an offense that can actually win him games, not a defense that needs to win him games where you just beg the offense to not lose you games.
Right, exactly. When you have a defense that can go out and play the way that they do, they're always going to be in tight games. But then all of a sudden you put a guy like Aaron Rodgers in there with the dudes that they have with Metcalf and Pickens, and somebody that can deliver the ball and get up 2 scores. That's a tough football team to beat. When you're not just grinding it out, you know that you have confidence in that offensive side of the ball to take the ball down the field and score on a continuous basis. That's when it gets fun for any team, because you've got talent on both sides of the ball and you can compete at a really high level with anybody.
If I were to ask you when talking about wide receivers, if we're talking about Pittsburgh specifically, and you have Pickens and you have DK, different kinds of receivers, but both elite. But if I were to say who were the grittiest wide receivers you ever played with, and you can define gritty however you want, like who would be your top three?
You know, I think in 2007 or 2008 when I was in New England, I mean, Randy Moss was there, and that dude was nobody could go up and outcompete him for a ball. He had incredible hands. He scared you with his speed. He was a really smart football player. Another guy that was there at the same time is Wes Wilker, which I don't think he gets enough credit. He had 5 seasons with over 100 and something catches. And he's a guy that controlled the middle of the field. Nobody could cover him man to man underneath. Smart player, would go over the middle, take the tough hits, and he would sacrifice his body more than you'd like him to. But at the same time, I mean, nobody could cover him. So those guys, both when you say gritty, a guy like Des Bryant, who I was only with for 1 season in Dallas, he's another guy that was just an absolute dog on the field. Now, he would definitely get after me. If I didn't throw him the ball, I was scared for my life. I'm not going to lie. I was sitting there going, man, he might try to hurt me like on the sideline right now. So he was just one of those dudes. Now, he had some injuries early in that season. He had like a stress fracture in his foot, so he wasn't fully himself, which I know for any player that competes at a really high level, that's super frustrating because he was used to just absolutely going out there and dominating, but it took some time for him to get back from that injury, obviously with the foot to heal. Dwayne Bowe, he's another guy that was a dog. Now, he was different from a gritty standpoint because he was just big and physical and would out physical you, but he was the nicest guy. Now, he'd tell me sometimes, he'd be like, hey, Cass, I was open on that. And I'd look at the picture and I'd be like, Dwayne, there's 2 guys over you and the safety's way above you. I'm not going to throw you that ball ever. He's like, all right, Cass, just look next time. So he was cool like that, but he was a savage on the field. So I've played with a lot of ultra talented wide receivers that had that gritty nature. And I think that just kind of goes with the position itself. If you're an elite wide receiver, then you have something inside of you that is like, give me the ball and I'll outcompete anybody that's up against me. I don't care who it is.
Was Moss the guy you mostly could just go, well, can't even really see him, but I know where he's kind of supposed to be? Throw.
100%. You just throw it in his area. I remember the first touchdown pass I threw that season. I skyrocketed this thing. I didn't think anybody was going to catch it. I thought the first section in the stadium was going to catch it. He goes up, points it, boom, brings it down. I was like, oh, what a good play by me. No, it was a better play by you, Moss. Oh, this is a funny story, actually. Moss is another dude. As I talk about him constantly because a lot of people don't understand how smart he was, but we're playing Seattle in Seattle. We get in the huddle, and Moss is on the outside, and he's like, we're about to start the series. So we're all in the huddle, and Moss never wanted to look at the quarterback because he never wanted to give anything away. So he starts talking to me. He's like, Cass, he's like, hey, I'm going up the rail. Just throw it up the rail. They're sitting on me. They're squatting on me. And I was like, you've got an in cut on this play. He's like, no, I'm going up the rail. I was like, well, why don't we talk about when we go over there? And he got so mad. He's like, shit, Cassel, Brady was here. We throw that shit up the rail. And I was like, well, Brady ain't here. And he said, and then that's so he didn't look at me that entire conversation. As soon as I said that, he said, what the F did you say to me, Cassel? I thought he was going to try to kill me in the huddle. The lineman broke it up. I was like, this is amazing. But it was just one of those things where he knew what he wanted to get done. And a lot of times we'd go over, make that adjustment and work exactly how he'd say.
If a wide receiver was unhappy with you, or if you were unhappy with a wide receiver, meaning they ran a wrong route, where would that conversation be? Would it be in the huddle, or would you guys do it on the sideline?
Usually I'd get after them on the field. Like if we're in the middle of a series and they were short on route, or they ran the wrong route, or they weren't at the right depth, I'd get them on the field, and I had no problem getting after them. And those guys understood. Anybody that ever played with me, and most wide receiver quarterbacks, they have that relationship where they know it's not personal, but it is me holding you accountable, and the same thing that they would hold me accountable if I messed up. And so that's part of the being a quarterback is you got to get after guys on the field sometimes. But if it's sideline and you don't really know what happened, then you go over, you look at pictures, and you say, well, what are we doing here? And then that conversation happens. Now it's probably a little bit more tempered on the sideline. It can occasionally get superheated, but in the huddle, or if you're on the field and I see it, then it would probably get a pretty good, it'd be a good back and forth between myself and the wide receiver.
It's an interesting time because a lot of these guys are either staying with the team that they were with, so they're like re-signing, or they're a free agent, they're deciding to stay, or they're moving. What is that like, kind of not knowing where you're going to go, like the personal part of that? Because again, we're seeing these players and we're like, oh, cool, Davante's going to LA or so and so is going there. But like, you're a human being with a wife and a family. What is that unknowing like?
It's unnerving, to be honest with you, because you get in that position where you know your contract's up and you're probably already in negotiations. Are we going to be back with the team that I played for the last 4 years or however long you have? And you're settled in that community. You have your home, you've got your family, the kids are probably in school if they're of age to go to school. So then you're sitting there going, maybe we're going back here. But then as soon as you start to realize they're not going to re-sign you, there's a little bit of excitement, but you have to have everybody on board. And I've been blessed to have a wife that understands the dynamics of what I did for a living. She played sports, so it was always an adventure for us. At the same time, the older I got, the more difficult it got and the more unnerving, because you're sitting there going, okay, where am I going to go now? And also, what does that quarterback situation look like? What is there an opportunity for me to compete? Am I going to be a bridge guy, or am I going truly there to be a backup and help some young guy develop a little bit more? So there's all those different dynamics. And then as you start to see these guys get signed at your position, you're like, well, hell, I'm better than him. Like, what's going on here? Why don't I have a job? And then you start questioning yourself a little bit. But once you do get signed, you're like, all right, we're all in. Well, let's get going.
We talked some quarterback lingo in the last episode, maybe the episode before that, and I drowned a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I bit off a little more than I could chew. So this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss a couple things out that I choose, and you explain to me as rudimentary as possible. I'm talking explain like I'm 5. Heck, 3. Like I'm a 3-year, like I'm a toddler. You've had many of those. You had 5 toddlers. Yes.
Okay, sweetheart.
Thank you. Yes.
Now let me explain.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk coverages. Okay.
Coverages, got it.
Cover 3.
Okay, cover 3 is 4 linebackers underneath and 3 people deep. When I say that, it means 2 corners on the outside and a middle of the field safety. It's a true zone defense. And so when I say that, I mean the 4 guys underneath, they're responsible for the flat, curl hook area. So they have these zones that they sit in. The corners are responsible for their third of the field. And then that middle of the field safety, he's there playing middle of the field, but he can go with the range to where he thinks the ball is going to go. But he's deep middle, trying to make sure they don't throw the post over the top or do something like that. And so he's got the deep middle of the field. So they're taught, don't let anybody get behind you. Corners don't have help really, so they've got to stay on top of that wide receiver on the outside. The safety has free range, especially guys, you always hear about it, like the Ed Reeds of the world, that he'd make you think you're thrown over here. You're talking about looking him one way to throw somewhere else, and then he'd just intercept the ball because he had incredible range. But that's what it is. Zone defense, 4 under, 3 over the top.
All right, let's go. We'll take it up one. Let's go.
You think my 3-year-old could understand that?
I do. And just for the record, some of these I know the answer to. I'm just playing dumb guy. So
yeah, you play ball, dog.
Yeah, but I still need. I am hopefully learning maybe something a little trickle new. And for those that are listening that don't know, I don't want them to feel like I'm here acting like, yeah, I can't believe you guys don't know. We're all in this together. So we're kind of explaining it. And let's go cover 4. So the difference in cover 3 and cover 4 is what?
You got 2 high safeties now. So you've got 3 underneath linebacker presence, right? And they're hook, I think curl flat, I should say, that they're going to go to. But then corners are responsible for a fourth of their field. And then the safeties are responsible for a fourth. So it's literally quarter up the field into 4s. Each deep part of the component, the corners and the safeties are responsible for a quarter. Now that can change based on formation in terms of where the safety help goes. But for the most basic aspect of cover 4, we call it quarters.
What about a cover 6?
Cover 6. So cover 6 is similar. So it's quarter, half is what we like to call it. And there's different variations based on the system that you're in. Like some people will use different numbers for different types of coverage, but cover 6 historically has been quarter, quarter, half, meaning you're going to roll. Say you've got a 3-by-1, which means 3 wide receivers over here. Your X wide receiver, who's usually your number 1 wide receiver, isolated on the weak side. Well, cover 6 is you're playing quarters to one side, so it's quarter, quarter, and then half, meaning you've got safety help over. That other corner will roll up on that number 1 wide receiver. So you're basically getting a 2-on-1 on one side of the field.
Is that
To the single wide
2-on-1
receiver.
in the half of the field since he's by
On
himself?
the half of the field. Yes. So he's going to try to get rerouted and play it for the most part like a cover 2. So you've got help over the top. So he can't just run by you and run the goes or the comebacks. So the corner is going to be responsible for jamming him up, trying to force an outside release, not letting him get inside. And then at some point, he'll fall off and look for anything else coming his direction. But the safety at some point will take him over as he gets into his section of the field.
And the final coverage question will be when they go into cover 0.
Oh, yeah. Love it. Bring it. Cover 0 is a max pressure, and it usually involves multiple safeties. Now, one of the safeties usually will have the tight end. You'll have one of the linebackers out there on the slot. I say linebacker, it's really considered a nickel, but everybody's on an island. The corners are a one-on-one, the safety's one-on-one, the nickel's one-on-one, but everybody else is pressuring. So they're going to try to force you to either throw hot or side adjust. If you go to a 7-man protection, it might buy you a little bit more time, but they're always bringing at least 1 or 2 more than you actually can pick up. So you have to have a game plan to get rid of the ball or to go some kind of max protection and get the ball down the field.
And if you're on defense and you're running a cover 0, like you must get to the quarterback, right? You have to sell out to get to the quarterback because everybody's on an island, right?
Oh, everybody's on an island. And the other part about cover 0 or blitz 0 is every one of those guys play with inside leverage. Because if you get beat across there's nobody in the middle of the field because safeties are gone. Linebackers are gone. So if you ever get beat across your face in cover 0, it's a home run. Now, the other thing is, so they'll sit inside. So you know that. So out routes or out breaking routes, stuff like that is probably your best bet in getting the ball downfield. Corner route, something like that. Or if you just have a stud on the outside, throw the go route. So that's where the matchups are. But and when you get a cover 0 and you can block it up, you're going to your best matchup, period, because you want to go to your dude that you think can make a play. And if he breaks 1 tackle, he's to the house. But if they don't get home, if they do get home, which they're planning on doing that, then it's a pain in the butt because you're rushed and guys aren't coming out of their breaks, and it's works often.
As a fan watching, I feel like coaches or quarterbacks or offensive coordinators are way too in love with these fades in the corner of the end zone. It seems like watching they never work. What is the fascination with the freaking fade?
Well, down there, it's amazing because when you get into the red zones, particularly the low red zone, the field shrinks, right? The windows are so much tighter. They talk about it all the time for the quarterback. When you're throwing in the front of the end zone, you want to put it low so he can body it up, because you throw it high at the front, that's when balls get tipped and things happen. And then you want to throw it high in the back of the end zone because you're giving your guy an opportunity to go up and high point a ball. And when I say that, I mean like an in cut on the baseline or on the inline to the end zone. You're trying to throw it high so that you're missing all the underneath traffic because of the condensed windows, trying to throw it high so he can go up and high point that ball. But the fade has always been something. If you get one-on-one, they're bringing blitz 0, or you trust in a guy, it's all about the release pattern to me in the wide receiver. If he can go up, and he's got to be patient, because sometimes you'll see those guys take one step up and go to the corner of the end zone, just like you're saying. Well, that corner just is able to react. You didn't give him anything different. So that one, now he just runs you to the side of the end zone, plays hands, and it's an unsuccessful play. The best wide receivers that you've seen run the fade route is a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. He'll go up and he'll give you 3, 1, 2, 3 start. So he can go inside, he can go outside. But what that does is it straightens up that defensive back. And now you give yourself space and time to go throw that ball.
You would hear when talking about the difference in high school to college to the NFL. In high school, throw it when he's wide open. In college, right when he starts to get open, throw it. In the pros, sometimes you got to throw him open when he's not open at all. Would you say that's an accurate description of what you have to learn as a quarterback through those levels?
I think that's 100% accurate. Anticipation is key, particularly in the NFL, and that's what we talk about all the time in our meetings. Is I've told you this: the depth, when you're supposed to be there, how you're getting there. You have to understand that, because there's a lot of time when somebody's breathing down your neck, you're throwing it, and the trust has to be that you're at the right depth, that you're throwing it to the spot where you're anticipating him coming, and you're blindly throwing this thing because he's not even out of his break, but you're throwing it with the anticipation that he's going to be there. And that's when big plays happen a lot of times, because it's a catch and run through the zone and out the back door. But you have to have anticipation in the league, because the guys on the defensive side of the ball, particularly at the cornerback position, they're such freak athletes that if you're a split second late, you take that extra hitch, you hesitate at all. Now that gives him the ability to recover. Even if your guy comes out of the break at a better angle than he did, he's going to catch up and be able to either get hands on it or potentially intercept it.
A lot of trust. Could you throw balls if you had to blindfolded in practice and pretty much know where to throw, since everything is on timing?
I don't know if I accurately could say that I could put a blindfold on and just throw the ball. I mean, I could probably get it around the vicinity. I don't know how accurate I'd be with a blindfold on, but in general direction, I'd be around the guy for sure.
Yeah, I'd use a blindfold for me. I'd be practicing with the blindfold.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
Mr.
yeah, for sure.
Miyagi, dodgeball at the end. I'd be so dialed in. Blindfold me up. Then fourth quarter.
We should come up with that.
Yeah, no, I don't
Go
practice
ahead.
enough. I don't get to practice enough. I'm saying like you, a guy who practice, all the time. Let us take a break, and we'll come back. We're going to do a segment called What Were They Like?, where I'm going to ask you about somebody, Matt, that I think you had a relationship in some way. I don't know any stories about it. And you just tell me, what were they like? And then you do the same to me. I'll go first. Dustin Colquitt, the punter. Like, I've heard some pretty interesting stories about him in general. Like, what kind of guy was he?
Oh, he was hilarious, dude. He was an out of the box thinker, prankster. I remember he was always that guy that in the locker room and all that was pulling pranks, having fun. When the coaches would come and do bed check, he'd put on this gold sequence like thong and lay down on the bed like this as they're walking in, and you're like, what are you doing right now? But the all-time story that I remember, so Ryan Suckup, our other kicker, was telling me this story. There's a guy by the name of Anthony Sherman, and he had this brand new souped up truck. And so Dustin hijacked his, I don't know, Twitter or whatever, and basically said he was donating it to charity. So Anthony Sherman had no idea that this was happening. So all of a sudden it started to blow up on Twitter and everything. Like, he's on Pat McAfee, had him on. Like, this is amazing. And Anthony Sherman had no idea that he had done this. But now he's backed into a corner. Like, what am I supposed to do? So he ends up raffling it off, gives his truck away, his brand new truck that he had souped up, like wheels, everything else, gives his truck away because Dustin set this thing in motion as a joke, but it caught so much fire and so much attention. He was on the news. He was on Pat McAfee. He's blowing up. So then he doesn't know what to do. Now, I do think that somebody donated him another truck after they heard the story. Thank God. But I was like, Dustin, who does that? One, I would beat your ass for selling my truck without me knowing. Two, like, to go to that extreme and just be like, oh, this would be hilarious. I was like, what are you doing? I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's pretty funny. And if whenever he was auctioning off his truck, he didn't know he was going to get another one, that shows you what kind of guy he was. Like, he was backed into a corner, but still committed to giving it away. And then whomever that was that donated a truck later, like, shout out to you because you made it all better and even. But that's funny.
That was pretty funny. I was like, that's pretty good stuff. Now, you were on American Idol, and I know you know Lionel Richie. So tell me a little bit about a good Lionel Richie story.
Okay, what was Lionel Richie like? First of all, I was on Idol for 4 years, and Lionel Richie is famous whenever being famous was everybody knew you. Now fame is so fractured. You can be like the greatest broccoli influencer, and like people are like, oh, I follow Trisha Broccoli, and she's famous to like a very select few people. it's hard to be just ubiquitous where you exist everywhere. Lionel Richie was that famous. Like this is like the 80s, the early 90s. So massively rich, obviously. Massive star, not only writing, singing, tour, in every way. So you really don't know how cool someone's going to be when they are that big. But through my experience now of having a life, of working with middly famous and very famous people, the very famous people are often the nicest because they have nothing to prove. There is no insecurity. The comparison would be soap opera actor to Tom Hanks. Well, Tom Hanks has nothing to prove. Tom Hanks is just a dude, good dude, being who he is because he has no insecurity. He's Tom Hanks. Where the soap opera actor may be like, yeah, I'm cool. I got all my guys with me. I got my crowd, my posse. I got all my fancy clothes on, trying to prove how cool I am. Well, Lionel Richie was the absolute kindest, greatest guy ever. I have two really fun Lionel Richie stories. Now, I was fortunate enough to get to be around him a lot. It wasn't even just a spot here, a spot there. Like we would have dinners. And when Lionel would tell a story, everybody shuts up. And that's a room where people are, again, fighting for oxygen because Luke Bryan's there, and you know Luke now, and Katy Perry's there, and Lionel's there, and I'm there, and Ryan Seacrest is there. And so, and Katie at the time, like Katie's husband, Orlando Bloom was there. So everybody has, like, everybody's used to being the center of attention in that group. So it's almost like a battle royal of who's going to win. So everybody's doing story after story. But when Lionel starts talking, and he's calm, he's very calculated, and he's like, Aretha Franklin once left me a voicemail. Everybody shuts up immediately because Lionel's talking. He doesn't demand it, but because he's Lionel and he has the greatest stories, he automatically gets it. Story number one, we were in Savannah, Georgia, and we're all sitting around a dinner table. And again, same thing. Everybody's talking. And it's just like you wait for somebody to take a breath, you jump in with a story, or you just get swallowed. So everybody's doing their thing, and Lionel goes, I flew from California over to Europe. And I'm just going to paraphrase the story a little bit, but he was like, most of the time I would fly private. I'd fly my own plane. He said, and this time I wasn't able to get my plane, so I flew commercial. Now, Lionel has been a 100 millionaire, billionaire, I don't know for how long. So, you know what? Not crazy that he flew privately from the States to Europe because that's about a $200,000 flight. But if Lionel's flying over to play some prince's private show for $1 million, that's that. And he wants to fly over. Yeah, he wants to fly over and have his energy. And he said, I was flying commercial and I was in first class and I decided to take a nap and I wasn't used to all the people around me. And so I fell asleep and I woke up and there was a phone taking a picture of me. And I was a little startled by the phone because I'm not used to people taking pictures of me while I sleep. And he said, so I called the flight attendant over and I said, flight attendant, would I be able to get an acai smoothie with a certain kind of berry with a little honey, and can I get it with some cinnamon? And she said, no, we don't have that. And he said, that's the last time I'm flying commercial. And so, but it was like such a kind version of a rich guy that I was like, dang, even when Lionel tells us stories of being rich, like he's awesome. But my favorite ever was we were about to do an episode of Idol. I think it was my second season there. And Ryan had never missed a show. Ryan is on time all the time, everywhere. The ultimate professional is Ryan Seacrest. And it was about 12 minutes before the show started, and Ryan still was not there. And so they began to be concerned, and he's like, I'm sick. I can't even get up. And usually if you're sick, and I've done this doing my stand-up shows, you get a steroid shot, it takes a minute, you get it back for a while, you got a bunch of energy, and then you die afterward, but you're able to get the job done. Ryan he was so sick he was not able to do that. So it's minutes before the show starts, and they say, hey, Bobby, we need you to host the show. Now, I don't think it's bigger than I am, but I had no rehearsing as far as like where to go on the stage. Stage direction's a big deal, especially doing live television because cameras are going. It was also a celebrity episode where celebrities were singing with the artists. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Can you run me through stage direction real quick? And they're like, got it. So They run me through, and there's like 4 minutes left, and all of a sudden, I'm standing backstage. I'm just kind of looking at notes, and someone taps me on the shoulder. Now, where the judges sit when we record is all the way across the theater. I mean, it is a pretty far walk, and so it wasn't a short walk, but that with about 4 minutes to go, that tap on my shoulder, I turn around, and it's Lionel Richie, and he's like, Bobby, and I say, hey, Lionel, what's up? He goes, I just wanted to give you some words of encouragement. He goes, the year was 1971. And I'm in, right? I know we only got 4 minutes, but he's talking 100%. Slow. He's also talking slow, and I'm like, oh, boy, we're going to get there in time. And he says, the Commodores. He goes, that was my band. And the Commodores, we had never really had a look on national television, and we get a call, and they're like, they need you on American Bandstand in 5 hours. Can you be there? And we looked at each other and we're like, are we ready for this? And we thought, we don't think we're ready, but you know what? We're going to show up and we're going to do it. And you know what, Bobby? We showed up and we dominated that night on American Bandstand. And that is a big reason as to why the Commodores existed. And that's why Lionel Richie is right here on this show, because when they called us, we showed up and we did it to the best of our ability, what we had been practicing for our whole life. And that is what you're about to do right now. So I want you to walk out there and be the Commodores. And I'm thinking to myself as he's talking, this is like the coolest pump-up speech I've ever had in my whole life. Like, this is a crazy Lionel Richie. And so it almost felt like a TV show, especially those Christmas shows where Santa Claus is like talking to somebody and they know Santa Claus is like Uncle Frank or something, but then you turn around and Santa Claus is gone and you're like, maybe that was Santa Claus. I turned around. There's no Lionel Richie. He was nowhere. I don't know how he was over 70 years old and he was gone. And I look back and
that is unreal.
He's at the table and I walked out and did a great job. But he was so giving. He was so kind, and he just was the opposite of what you think someone that famous would be. And after I left Idol, and he's so famous, you think, he probably forgets everybody. It was like 2 years later. We were both in Vegas, and I get a text. It says, hey, Lionel just saw on social media you're in Vegas. Do you and your wife want to come over and go meet up with him and his wife? And I was like, first of all, shocked he even remembered 2 years later. So we did, and he remembered it. It was awesome. I could not say enough great things. He didn't wear a gold thong in a bed, which would have been awesome. That'd have been awesome. But Lionel Richie, A+.
That's solid. I mean, and the fact that you said he called in, Seacrest called in how long before the show?
Well, Seacrest was trying to get there. So it wasn't that he was like calling in, going, like disappeared, but he was trying to like build it up so he could go and do the show. But he finally was not doing it at about 12 minutes before the show started.
Wow.
Yep.
Dude, that is, you just have to kind of gather yourself, I would think, a little bit. You didn't have any adrenaline or anything like that. You're like, I got this. Be a Commodore.
Okay, I'm gonna put this back on you. This is the same thing that happened. These are our lives in parallel. That's the same thing that happened to you and Brady, bro.
True statement. True statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Okay, yeah. You prepare for it. You feel like you're ready, but you don't know until you know. Like your direction, you to go out there and you're like, all right, let's go. Let's do it and see what happens.
And you just trust the process that what you've been doing the whole time has led you to this place to be able to perform at a level. Now, I don't remember the first 3 or 4 minutes of it. I think I kind of semi-blacked out. I was just like, they were like 3, 2, go. And I was like, I remember starting on the prompter, my first things were, welcome to American Idol. I am not Ryan Seacrest. And it wasn't even in the prompter, but I said that, and then I don't remember the first few minutes. And I think you said the same thing about when you got in after Brady got hurt.
It's just adrenaline, man. You go in, and all of a sudden they say, hey, Cassel, you're going in, and you can feel, I felt my heartbeat, felt the ears, and plus there's 90,000 or whatever it was, 80, 90,000 people there sitting there going, man, this sucks. Cassel's going in. Who's this guy? Right? Including myself. So like you get through the whole first series is a blur, and then all of a sudden you calm yourself down a little bit, and then you're starting to get into sequence, and you know, oh, this is football. This is what I've been training for. But that first series or first few minutes where you're just overwhelmed by emotion, really, and it's all about controlling those emotions. It's wild.
Did you have a moment, because I did, where before we went on, I looked up and they have the massive American Idol logo, and that has been such a big part of American pop culture for decades, where I looked at it and I was like, Man, for a second, I just want to appreciate that this has been a staple in American pop culture, and I'm about to host this. Did you ever have one of those moments, like your first time in, where you looked at something and were like, huh, this is real. I'm going to take a second, and it's going to be real cool?
No, not at all. Mine was full fear factor. Mine was like, just don't mess it up. I'm being dead honest. Like, I wish I could have sat there and taken the moment in. I think the first time I was able to do that was the following game. And I told you this story where we went to the Jets, we played them, and ended up beating him. And Brett Favre was the opposing quarterback. And he came over, shook my hand. And at that point, it kind of came full circle. I was like, that was one of the coolest moments that's ever happened. Like the fact that Brett Favre, my childhood idol, came over and shook my hand. But prior to that, no, I was a fish out of water, man. I'm just like trying to stay afloat. Come on, babe. Come on, give me some oxygen.
I got to meet Matt's wife, and because I hadn't met your wife yet, but Matt and I have very close mutual friends, which is part of the reason we're doing the show together, because they like vouch to each of us for each other. And so I had a show at what's called the Ryman Auditorium here in Nashville. It's a very legendary place. And I got to meet your wife, and yeah, she looks like she would destroy somebody on a volleyball court. Like she looks an A+ athlete. I can tell just by looking in her eyes.
She's definitely a better athlete than I am. She's definitely more springy, just an absolute stud. And she's got one of those personalities too. You know, like there's women that like to work out. She likes to get after it. And she could have been a Navy SEAL, I think, with the mindset that she has, but she's always been a stud and really good mom too. But I also got to meet your wife, who couldn't have been sweeter, and a lot of your family was there as well. I mean, and let's talk about the Raging Idiots for a second. I mean, you put on a show like you wouldn't believe. If you guys have never seen Bobby and this crew, I mean, you guys absolutely slayed.
Well, okay, let's do that then for a second. So,
Yeah, can we get into that?
we
I mean,
can.
the
Yeah,
show was phenomenal.
Sure. And I was super grateful you came, because I know you have a bunch of kids, right? You have five kids, so it's not like you can just leave at any moment. And it was a Tuesday night, and we do this show. We've done it every year for 10 years. We had to stop for COVID for a minute, but for St. Jude, and we give all the money to that hospital. And yeah.
Tell them how much money you raised for St. Jude's. It's an incredible cause.
Well, overall, like $27 million.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yes, it's great. And so we made, some hundreds of thousands that night, and we had a lot of friends show up and play with us. But I guess I never thought that you had never seen me in that element, because we've just done this together. Was that weird? Like, I come out and I got to have a guitar. Like, you don't know me as that at all, or like the guy doing comedy. Was that a bit bizarre?
It was a little different. I mean, and then the next thing I know, you're literally on stage headlining, just rocking with the red jacket, red microphone, dancing your face off. I didn't know you had those kind of moves. And then you're busting out with the lyrics. You might have burned, I don't know, 20,000 calories just in that one night, with as long as you've been on stage dancing and singing and playing your guitar. It was incredible. And you played with everybody.
Yeah, that's the hard part, because I'm not what would be a traditional musician. So for me to have to learn a bunch of music is tough, because I play guitar, but I don't play guitar. In Nashville, it's the giants of music, right? So can I grab a guitar? I just learned it so I can do comedy. But yeah, it was a really fun show. And if anybody's listening to this, we'll do it again next year, probably at the Ryman, and you should come. And I just thought I would rather get in a fight with Matt than his wife, because I think she would tear my head off. Like, very attractive, very feminine, but still, I was like, I can see why she was a volleyball player at that level.
Yeah, she's a stud. She's a stud. What was your favorite act? And I thought one of the funniest things was when you had your glasses on that was playing O-Town
Okay, it was
in
so
your
stupid.
ears.
It was so stupid. I hated that.
That was one of the funniest things
It wasn't.
I've ever seen.
It wasn't. It wasn't
It
funny.
was very funny.
It wasn't funny. So I do things that are supposed to be funny, and like I do comedy stuff, and I play comedy songs. And this wasn't supposed to be funny. I thought I was having like schizophrenia, because O-Town, I used to be in O-Town, the boy band, way back in the day. And so they came out, we reunited for the first time in years. And afterward, I kept hearing their music. And so I asked my band, do you guys hear? Then I asked the crowd, do you guys hear their song? And they was like, no. And I'm like, I'm hearing things. So I put my monitor back in my ear. I don't hear anything. I put my ear down on the monitor on the ground. I don't hear anything. We play another song. But the whole time anybody's playing anything, I still hear the O-Town song in my ear. And I'm going berserk right now. Turns out I have those Meta glasses that take pictures and play music. I didn't realize the music was playing through my glasses, and that's why I was the only person that could hear it, because I literally was the only person that could hear it, and everybody else was like, dude, you're going crazy. Yes, that sucked.
It probably sucked, but like from a show standpoint, I was just laughing my ass off going, because everybody you asked, none of them were like,
Oh.
I have no idea what you're talking about, which probably made you feel even crazier.
Yeah, my whole band was like, I thought they were playing
no
a prank
idea.
on me. I literally thought they were playing a prank on me. So, yeah, it was a fun night, and yeah, that's all. I'm glad it's
Yeah.
over, because we just want to pull it off, and we did, and I appreciate everybody who came out, and all right, that's it. That's going to be it for this episode of Lots to Say. Go subscribe to the podcast, please, if you don't mind. Whatever feed you're hearing this on, if it's on the Bobby Bone Show feed, if it's on one of the NFL feeds, and you enjoyed the show, if you don't mind, search for Lots to Say, subscribe. We would love it. It would help us. If you don't mind, give us a review, put a comment up. We don't have many of those. We're still trying to make friends here in the podcast world. So if you don't mind, please do that as well. Kickoff Kevin back, which, by the way, Kevin got married. Again,
Yeah.
he's back.
Yeah.
He's back.
Congrats, Kev.
Thanks,
How
man.
was that honeymoon?
Oh, it was beautiful. Beautiful. I think maybe a day, a little bit too long. Took me a while to get back into it, but it was beautiful.
You know, when I said I felt that, I was like, sometimes I'm on vacation or honeymoon, and I'm like, this is a little too long. Everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I can only have so much fun before I start to feel guilty.
Yeah, my wife is pregnant, 7 months pregnant, so it's like you can only do so much.
Oh, that's true,
Relaxing,
too.
and I can sit by
That's
the pool
true,
for so
too.
long, but she loves it, and I'm like, all right, this is cool.
Kickoff Kevin, congratulations. Reed, who's about to get married, coming up. How many months?
Let's see, we got 2
months. Oh, only 2 months?
Oh, yeah. You're getting ready. Dude.
Dang.
Don't get cold feet.
Yeah, now he's counting again. 3 months.
months.
3 months.
Big moves.
No, Castle's yelling cold feet. Oh, I got it. Reed Yarberry, head of all of our video. That's Matt Cassel. I'm Bobby Bones. We've had lots to say, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.